Okay, so, normally the first class, there's some kind of introduction to the topic. And um, the I think one of the interesting things about this course, even though it's on all of the different theories, and yeah, there's a lot more theories than this, but these are kind of the core theories in the profession. There's a lot of modern theories that we're not going to cover, like ACT and things like that, DBT, but I think these are some pretty important core theories. Uh, and it gives you a good foundation. Um, so it's interesting how many people I've interviewed for various positions that don't have a knowledge of basic theories. And then I ask, well, how do you work with clients if you don't have a knowledge of basic theory? And so talk therapy is more than just talking. There is a methodology to the dialogue. And, I think it's important to have that foundation. But when we ask ourselves, what are all the reasons why we need these theories? And one of the interesting reasons is that I kind of go through these theories in a chronological order. So not only are you learning about the theory, but you're learning about the history of the profession. So we're going to look at theories beginning in Vienna, in Europe, moving westward to the East Coast, to New York City and Boston, and then they end up in California. So that's the flow of theories throughout psychological history. Um, there are other schools of thought uh, in the field of counseling and psychology. So, for instance, there's theories in lifespan and development that are a little different than therapeutic theories. They're developmental theories. There are theories in diagnosis, and a lot of them started in Paris at that university and moved on from there. So there are different schools of thought, but this is kind of the therapeutic concept that we'll be covering. So you do get to learn about historical figures. Hopefully, we'll have some interesting stories um, and kind of the progression of that chronology. Of course, the most important reason is to be able to help people, to be able to help your clients become more aware, and that personal awareness promotes individual change in a positive way, hopefully. Um, I think that there are some more, I don't know what the word is, but um, concrete reasons. So, for instance, you need to know these theories in order to pass the comps and the NCE licensure exam. And when I help clients, people think this might just be a saying, but it's really true. I have grown just as much as an individual in therapy with other people, with clients, as I think my clients have grown, because I gain insight from every human perspective. With every person I interact with. That's part of my personal theory that we're all equals. I just happen to have some special training in this area. They have other expertise and knowledge in other areas. So we come into this dialogue as equals. We're present for one another, and we both grow as a result of that interaction and experiential time together. Um, so, so I think it's important for us to find our personal theory. And it doesn't mean you just have to have one theory for the rest of your life. I mean, this is one of the questions for your final paper. What's your personal theory? You can change it. You can integrate them later on. But we do want to find one theory that really fits you as an individual, your belief system, your view of life and human nature, one that fits your personality. So I think those are the various reasons. I think the book we're using, Corey's book, I kind of make fun of it, but it's a good outline, of the basic theories. And it's really is the one that most programs use. So if somebody says, hey, what book do you use? You say Corey, it's probably the same one they used. So everybody knows it. It's pretty popular. I do have, like I said, I have my own personal theory that I use. And I think a lot of other theories draw from existential theory. I'll be talking more about it when we go over existential theory in class. I think that one of the things that the early chapters of the book covers is also a question in the final paper. It's to look at the personal characteristics of effective counselors and see which ones you think you already possess and you're doing really well at, and which ones do you need to work at. Like, for instance, one that I always need to work at is change. I don't change makes me anxious. Change doesn't make me anxious. I am anxious about change. So it's a different way of looking at it. So that's something I need to work on. So that's in the first couple chapters. And as you read about those personal characteristics, apply them to yourself. Maybe take some notes because you're going to write about them in the final paper. So every class talks about ethics to some degree. And I did provide the ACA Code of Ethics, and you can look at that. You can refer to it. I do recommend even becoming like a student member of ACA because they have resources for you. They also provide insurance for your practicum and field if you're a student member at a discounted rate. So I think there's a difference between ethical choices and personal values. With an ethical choice, there is a right or wrong answer. Doesn't mean you agree with it. It doesn't mean it might not change down the road. Laws and court decisions change all the time. We can see it happening today. But for the time being, there's usually what's considered an ethical answer. It might change, but for now, there usually is. A value is a personal belief system about a topic. So because there is usually an answer to an ethical decision, unless it's a brand new category, like I remember when HIV and AIDS first began, that was a whole new area of ethical decisions, and there were no precedents set for that. So they had to be developed. So that's a case where no, at that time there wasn't an ethical answer. We had to figure that out. But there is kind of a ladder for ethical decision making. And you have to go in order to follow these steps. So, because some are prioritized over others. So there's 4 different steps. It's in your notes, don't worry about it. So the first one, the one that, is above all the others is there a legal guideline? And of course, federal laws, and then state laws, and then what we call a court precedent. So federal laws are the top priority, then state laws, and then court precedents. And a court precedent is there might not be a law on a certain topic, but it went to court and a judge or jury made a decision on that matter. So that's a court precedent. And of course, the higher the court, the more important the precedent. So, so legalities, that's the first place to look. You're not lawyers. Maybe some of you are, but you're not for the most part. And you might need some help, figuring this out. And that's why we have these professional organizations. We can bring an ethical question to these organizations and they'll help to provide an answer for us. So, all right, let's say there's no law, there's no court precedent. The second place you look is the ethical guidelines from professional organizations. And like, I remember when I just started out, I would get clients and they would want to barter with me for my services. They would want to provide firewood or eggs or whatever. It depended on what time of year it was. But here's the problem. This is just an example. So later on, ACA added to the code of ethics that you cannot barter for counseling services. And here's the reason. Somebody gets pretty tired cutting firewood. That's a strenuous activity. It's hard work physically. And sitting in a chair talking with someone, it takes a lot of expertise to have a good counseling session, a good therapeutic session. But to the client, they might think that sitting in a chair and talking with me is worth, maybe 30 minutes of firewood. And I'm saying, well, no, it's worth about $100. And they don't understand that. So that's why we can't barter. We would have a disconnect on the value of professional counseling services. And so, we always say no to that. So if you want, there are ethical guidelines from each of the professional organizations. A third place, if there's nothing in those guidelines, is we bring, even now, so when you go into practicum or field education, and you're on a site with clients, you're going to have supervision on that site. You're going to have a professor and you're going to meet in a class for supervision. So you're going to have 2 supervisors providing supervision. You're going to have supervision while you're getting your LPC for 2 years minimum, 3,000 hours. And even after you get your LPC, in order to get most insurance, they want you to have some type of supervision. So I'm never without supervision. It doesn't end when your degree ends. It doesn't end when when you get your LPC. So bring it up in supervision, whatever the ethical question is. The fourth and last place is you think you're going to be done with classes when you graduate, but no, you're required to get continuing education credits every 2 years. So you're always going to have ongoing training. And if you have a question in an ethical area, there's probably some training for that. So you can go to conferences, you can do online training, you can go to workshops. There's all kinds of venues so that you can get to continue education. You can even come back here and get a certificate if you want. All right, so when we think about ethical codes, they can be found in all the professional organizations, but there's 4 national organizations that you should know the acronyms for. First one is the ACA, the American Counseling Association. Second one is the ASCA, the American School Counseling Association. Third one is APA. That stands for 2 different things, the American Psychological Association and the American Psychiatric Association. We'd probably lean more towards the American Psychological Association, unless it's something to do with diagnosis. And then it'd be the American Psychiatric Association. And NBCC, the National Board for Certified Counselors. So those are the primary organizations that do have codes of ethics. And, probably the one that you'd want to join at some point is ACA. They also have all of these at the state level. So for instance, Pennsylvania has PCA, Pennsylvania Counseling Association, PSCA, Pennsylvania School Counseling Association. So these also occur at the state level. All right, so that's pretty much the way, the ladder of decision-making for ethical choices. When we talk about things like appropriate practice, we want to always include confidentiality and the limits of confidentiality and make sure a client understands that and abide by them. And we'll usually talk more about that in 2 classes, the skills and techniques class and the ethics class. We should maintain professional boundaries. We should have an understanding of dual relationships, like a dual relationship. We can't have a business with our client. We can't start a business. We can't start any type of relationship with a client. We can't go have a beer with a client after our Friday session. If I see a client in an aisle of Walmart, which happens almost every week, I don't say, "Hey, how you doing?" They have to approach me. I can't approach them. And of course, all of the confidentiality has to be maintained. And ethics class will go over how to maintain records and keep them safe and everything else, even electronic records. In skills and techniques class, you're going to memorize the limits of confidentiality. But I did list them here in your notes for you. So values and things like diversity. So I like the word diversity. I like the word multiculturalism, but the word multiculturalism actually has the word culture in it. But diversity is much broader than multicultural. So diversity includes any differences that we experience, like age differences, race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, socioeconomic status. Maybe if you're from a different geographical location, it includes trauma or physical appearance. And the list is endless. That's just a few things that diversity includes. And even though I try to learn as much as I can about any diverse population, the number one thing that I think we can do as counselors is to build a trusting relationship and to say that, please share your experience with me, whatever that might be. And if I don't understand something, please be open to sharing what that was like. I know I'll never be able to fully understand, but I'll be as empathic as possible, you know. So I think it's important to bring that to the forefront and to verbalize that with a client. And as time moves forward, through a good Rogerian or person-centered approach in the beginning, I think it's possible to build a trusting relationship with other human beings. One of the most important things is, it's the same thing as medical doctors, cause no harm. And, so the next thing is don't impose your personal values onto a client. Now, most people think imposing a personal value is an obvious thing. You tell them something you believe, but it's a little more subtle than that. So if somebody brings an issue up and you provide them with like documents, pamphlets, things like that, okay, well, that's what you provided them. What did you not provide them? That's also an imposition of personal values. So for instance, I don't care whether you support or do not support abortion, but that seems to be a big topic all the time. So either way, if you give them pamphlets on abortion, or if you give them pamphlets on, adoption, it's not just about what you give them. It's about what you don't provide. It's about the information you don't provide. So you have to give the client all the available information, or you're imposing your own values as well. So it's not just about what you do, it's about what you don't do as well. Think about what cases you might have a difficult time handling. And I think a lot of people have, including myself, we had populations we wanted to work with for whatever reason. Maybe you've had some history with addiction and you want to work with that population. I would suggest that you begin working with a population that you may feel less comfortable with or less drawn to. Because, it's good to get experience in what you're not naturally comfortable with. I remember all kinds of experiences, like I was not comfortable. I told you the story about getting a lot of children who had been abused. I was at first very uncomfortable with that, but I had really good supervision and I learned a lot. And I do believe I was able to feel more comfortable and help these children. The other thing is to think about the reasons you may feel uncomfortable. Do you have some unfinished business that you need to take care of before becoming a counselor? Lots of people come in to this program to become a therapist because they've had a positive experience with a therapist themselves as a client. With that being said, it's important. We can't help other people until we've helped ourselves. We can't help clients until we've dealt with our own issues. And we might be surprised at how many issues we might still have lingering in the background as unfinished business. Let's see what else. All right, well, that's pretty much the ethics. And I'm just looking at the time. So I think what I'm going to let you do, since it's almost 6, is I'm going to let you watch a video on the history. maybe we just talked about the history. I think I don't think there's anything to watch. I think we're good for tonight. So usually I don't open the next D2L week until the day of the class, because I don't like an overlap. So I leave this open until like Monday night, and then Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, I'll open up the next week. So we're kind of like working through 1 week at a time. So the only thing you really have to do now is read the chapters and answer the introductory questions. That's about it for now. Yes. Do whatever you want. All right. Yeah, you can do that. Any questions from our online individuals?
I have a question. So did we only need one book for this class? Because I saw like two different titles, but it had like the same author's name on it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so the one Corey book is required, but you can get any edition of it. Like you can get an old edition because it's cheaper. You don't have to get the brand new one. But the other two are just recommendations. They're not required.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you should be able to get an old edition for like under $30. What else? Anybody else online have a question? Yeah. And if you ever do, just speak up, because I might be sharing my screen and I can't see like a hand raised or something. Just interrupt me. Just say, hey, I got a question. All right. All right. Keep coming to Zoom class. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.